They're doing all right.
All right, I just started recording just so we have it, so I don't forget to hit record.
No problem. I was going to record my screen, but you have it, so that's fine. That's one less thing I have to worry about.
Oh, okay. Yeah. We can do it because then we can distribute it afterwards and everything if students and alums reach out.
And so for anybody who missed it, are we going to do something on Friday?
Yeah. Why don't we email about that after? Because I think we could do some sort of like Q&A 20-minute catch up for anyone who wants to watch the recording and catch up with you before the next session. Yeah.
Okay. That's cool. I'm down for that.
Yeah. Well, it looks like people are coming in. Yeah, we can chat though about timing for that and stuff, David.
Okay. No, that's good.
Yeah, let's give everyone a couple more minutes and stuff, and then I'll do an intro.
Perfect.
And Sounds David, will you intro kind of part 1 through 4 of like what this looks like and everything?
Sure. Yeah, I could definitely do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. You can kind of give the overview of it if you like.
You know what? Let me get my my book bag real quick.
Yeah.
Where's that book bag?
I ordered a bunch of hand soaps from Bath and Body Works and they just arrived and I'm very excited. They're the foaming ones, which I've never gotten before. Ooh. But then I was like, we're adults now. We have disposable income and are just washing our hands a lot. So
that's nice. You get like some fun out of that then.
Yes.
I love it. Your picture of your web in the background and everything now.
Thank you. Yes. You see Charlotte in the middle, and then Miles, and then these are. It's too far to see them, but they're all the Into the Spider-Verse characters.
Oh yeah, in your video you sent me, I saw that. That's awesome. And then I don't know, David, do you have any preference of people like keeping camera on, camera off? Feel like, I don't know.
Well, once I share my screen, I honestly can't even see anybody's face.
Okay,
so,
that's good then.
I mean, whatever's, comfortable for them. As long as they're listening, I'm good.
Right. Well, I think it makes sense to get started now and everything and just kind of dive in. I want to give you your full time. Well, welcome everyone. This is the first part of our freelancing series this fall. This first one is called You Are Essential, and I'm so happy to have you here. This is hosted by the Patty Disney Center for Life and Work at CalArts, and we are kind of your all-encompassing professional development, career development, helping you basically achieve your dreams as a creative leader department at CalArts. We do work with alumni and with students. So I know I can already tell we have a mix of people here. So, and also my name is Bailey. This is my colleague Natasha with the beautiful web behind her.
Hello.
and we are here. I'll put in the chat, I'll put our general email address. If you do want to follow up with us with anything, I'll put my email in there too. But for now, I'm just so happy to have David Heredia, our guest speaker here today. David is an educator, an animator, an author, has done amazing things kind of as an entrepreneur on his own for many years. And last year we were so privileged to have him actually fill in for someone who's a close colleague of a colleague. I guess Tanya is kind of a colleague. She comes and talks in our entrepreneurship classes a lot. Socks, you will be seeing Tanya on Thursday in our entrepreneurship class. But Tanya has worked with us a lot. She wasn't able to come to lead a freelancing survival guide, and we were so lucky to pull David in for that last minute. And so that kind of, I think in many ways, David, you told me sort of started your trajectory of really wanting to design workshops for young creators and helping them figure out how do they make money and keep afloat, especially now during this pandemic. Absolutely. So David has designed a multiple series and everything, and we're so happy to have you here for this 4 parts.
Thank you so much.
Please, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you everybody for coming in and joining us today, and I'm super excited. This is, as Bailey mentioned, a 4-part series. Today we're focusing on what I call You Are Essential, which for the most part it's a workshop designed to help first inspire you. Because I don't know about you, but when, news of COVID hit and they started labeling who's essential and who's not, I started to get the feeling like, oh man, I guess my work doesn't mean anything these days. It's not valued. And, the bigger issue was I was thinking to myself, oh my God, how am I going to stay afloat? Because of all of the colleges that closed down and all of the businesses that I, normally do business with, there was nothing, so I had to create opportunities for myself. And so if there were any students or any alumni who were feeling sort of like, where do they go? How do they sort of, come up from all of this just, disaster that we're in right now? There's still hope. There's still hope. And as you learn more about me, you're going to learn exactly what I mean by that. Because if I can do it, absolutely every single person in this room can do it. Okay. So first I want to just quickly give a background of who I am and what I have done. And just to help give you an idea of where I'm coming from. Okay. My background, actually, I have a slide presentation that I can share with you. Let me just jump right into it right now. This is the best way to talk about my bio. You guys all see my screen? All right, let's just go right into it then. Oh, that's the cover. That's where we are, right? So you guys remember that game, The Game of Life? It was a horrible game, but I thought this was really appropriate to sort of explain my path. Now, this starts from the year 2002, which was when I graduated from my four-year college in animation at the School of Visual Arts in New York. Graduated, got a phone call from Warner Brothers because I had done an internship in 2001. And they said, David, you got to fly over here. We have an opportunity for you, but you have to get here right now. So, being as excited as I was, I quit my job, packed my stuff. And within 2 days, I was in LA. And I was sitting down at Warner Brothers Studios having this interview. And I was just like, my goodness, I was so excited. I could barely speak. But what I noticed was the guy was talking about everything other than the job. Turns out there was no job. I don't know what happened, but I basically quit my job and moved to California for nothing because there was no job. So I was extremely depressed. It was just a really bad introduction to California for me. And I had to figure out like, well, what am I going to do? Should I stay? Should I leave? Well, I decided to stay. And this was June. So I stayed. I ended up getting a job at Hollywood Video. They went out of business. And I was there for about 3 months until I finally decided, you know what? California is beautiful weather, beautiful women, but I'm done. I'm finished. I'm going back to New York because there's just no way that I see myself, college graduate working like $6 an hour at a video store. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but that's not what I went to school for, So it started really making me think about what my purpose and what my goal was as an artist. So I bought my plane ticket. This was in August now, and I was getting ready to head back to New York. And oh man, would you believe it? That same week, literally the week I was supposed to fly back to New York, I get a call from Walt Disney because I had interviewed the week prior, and I wasn't really planning on staying if they offered me the job because I had already made it up in my mind that I was leaving. So after I walked out of this interview, like not even 10 minutes goes by, and they call me and they're like, hey, we want to make you an offer. So I was like, oh man, sweet. So I stayed there. I worked there for about 4 years, and something interesting happened. Now, this journey that I'm sharing with you is my journey. Other people that I have graduated from the School of Visual Arts in animation with have had completely different scenarios. Some were literally plucked right out from school and started work at, Warner Brothers or Disney, and they're still there since 2002. Mine is one of, look at it this way, not everybody's going to get picked in the NBA draft, right? There are going to be some that will not be picked. Well, I categorized myself as I wasn't going to be the top pick, but in not being the top pick, it taught me that you need way more than just talent to make it in this industry. Talent is going to help you, but that's not everything. There's way more to it. So back to Disney, I was there for 4 years. And as every year passed on, I tried to move up. I tried anything just to get, better opportunities. And it just, there weren't any opportunities for me. There were no opportunities to move up. And I started to feel really frustrated. So I left. I gave him my 2 weeks and I left. And I started my first company, which was Heredia Designs. And I was just doing, custom cartoon designs, character designs, explainer videos, that type of stuff. And it went well for a little bit. But by January, things started to go sort of down. I was having a harder time getting clients. And, I worked myself to a point where I was like, I can't make any money. So I ended up working at State Farm, and I stayed there for like 3 months. And while I was there, I realized that it was a great point for me. Although I hated that job with every bone in my body, it was one of those situations that really forced me to think about, again, my goal. Why did I come thousands of miles from New York to land a job like this? I hated it. I couldn't stand that place. But it gave me the time to think about what I really wanted to do. So I started to collect myself. I started to get a better idea of the trajectory that I wanted to take. Whoops. That wasn't the trajectory I wanted to take. But so after about 3 months at State Farm, what I did was I left. And during that time, I ended up getting married. But I left because I ended up getting a job as a character designer in this company, a game company. And it was a sweet gig. I loved it. It was great. The very next year, I got laid off. So I was like, Jesus. It's like, I was thinking, okay, do I freelance full time or do I just go work for somebody full time? And it didn't matter which direction I tried to go in. It was like, it wasn't working. So then I had my first daughter and my unemployment ran up right when she was born. So that was a pivotal point for me where I had to decide, okay, I'm either going to do this full time or I'm going to look for work full time. So I decided to look for freelance full time. I landed a gig on Craigslist. Later on the next year, I had my son. All this time I'm doing stuff like off Craigslist. Now, they had an app. It doesn't work anymore. It was called Craig's Notifica. And it was the sweetest app in the world. They literally sent you notifications of animation gigs and all kinds of stuff. It was great. So that's where I was landing all of my gigs. Well, I landed one job that ended up landing me a position at Pearson. Now, Pearson is the company that prints like the textbooks, and they designed the curriculum. And so long story short, they hired me to do a 6-figure job, and I ended up hiring a crew of people, worked for about 4 or 5 years, specifically on, their animation projects, and had my final child in March of 2013. And then at the beginning of January 2014, the Pearson gig ended. So, it was kind of like a sad time, but it allowed me to sort of start thinking about, again, reflection, my family, what's important. My oldest started kindergarten. And the reason why I put this in there is because this was the moment that my career completely changed. Okay, my daughter went to kindergarten, and she was another student in her class started saying these really nasty racial slurs at her. And oh man, I wanted to go in there and flip every table in the room. And I was just so upset, but I was more upset at the fact that it was a kindergarten child, it's a young child. And it's not the school's fault. This is the parents' fault who are not having these conversations with their children. So I had to start thinking about, what can I do as a parent to educate my children, to make sure that they're confident and that when something like this happens again, they know how to defend themselves, not physically, verbally. So that's when I started Heroes of Color, which is the name of my company, but it's also the name of an animated series that I created. And the series highlights people from different ethnic backgrounds and highlights their achievements and just the groundbreaking work that they've done. And I use this as a tool to help educate my kids and other kids on just, you know, other great people that are out there that we just don't hear about, especially not in school. So fast forward now to April 2016, I was invited to this tech summit. I didn't want to go, I went anyway. And while I was there, I met the CEO of this company called Red. You might have seen their shirts. They had a partnership with Gap, and like the shirt would say inspired, but then the actual letters RED had like the brackets around it. Red was the name of the nonprofit organization. They raised billions of dollars for, like, you know, AIDS awareness and trying to find a cure. Well, at any note, the CEO, Deb Dugan at the time, was sitting in this summit, and I attended a workshop. I'm sitting in there, and the facilitator's like, okay, I want everybody to write a poem about, God knows what, I don't even remember. And I wrote my poem, and he's like, can we get a volunteer? So I jumped up, you know, I read my poem, and afterwards, Deb Dugan stepped up to me, and she was like, hey, I really liked, you know, the poem that you read out loud. And I was speaking about heroes of color. I was speaking about what my inspiration was behind it. That was what my poem was about. And she asked me a question. She's like, do you have a children's book? Because this sounds like a fantastic children's book. And I did not. I had no interest in designing a children's book, but I saw an opportunity coming. So I was like, oh yeah, absolutely. I have a children's book, and it's almost done. She's like, good, because I have a contact at Scholastic, and I want to introduce you to her. So I was like, oh snap, now I need to run home and create something. So that summer, I started working on an idea that I had, which was a spinoff of the video series called Little Heroes of Color. And I'm thinking, you know what? I got the ultimate contact, because this is the vice president of Scholastic. So there's no way this is going to go wrong. Well, I was wrong. It was rejected. I submitted it, and like just quickly, they were like, sorry, we're not interested. So I was like, all right, well, there goes that. But again, I learned another lesson. I started thinking about, well, what is my goal? What exactly am I trying to achieve here? Am I creating products just to make money? Am I creating products because I'm actually trying to make a statement? You know, there's something that I'm advocating for, something that I care about. Like, what are my goals? What are my morals? What are my values? Like, I really had to start thinking about that. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how interested I was in this topic that I sort of pigeonholed myself into. But I loved it. I loved, you know, talking about it. So that 2016 in September, there was this program called Black Public Media Incubator Program, which is kind of like a Shark Tank for Black filmmakers. I applied, and anybody who got into the program had an opportunity to pitch, like, hey, I want to pitch a web series. And if they pick you, you get anywhere from $50,000 to $150,000, like, given to you, you know, not alone, as part of the competition. You know, I mean, it's a heavy competition. So I didn't get in. I got rejected. So I was like, damn. But it was a great, great, great opportunity. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to keep my eye out, because I know they're going to come back around, and I'm going to prepare myself. So in the meantime, I went back to my video series, Heroes of Color, and I started submitting it into film festivals left and right, like just like crazy. And then I started winning. And so when that started happening, that gave me the boost of confidence that I needed to really start developing myself. And I went back to school to work on getting my master's degree. January 2018, I went to New York. There's a museum called the Schomburg History Center, and they had a comic book festival, and I went, and I was given 45 minutes on a stage to do a presentation, and I ended up getting on the news. I got on NPR, I got on New York Times, like all this great stuff started happening, like just like out of nowhere. And I said, you know what? I'm going to reach out to Scholastic again, because if I'm getting all this attention and people, I'm winning these awards, there's some value here, you know? And if I'm not convinced about the value of the products that I'm creating, nobody's going to be convinced. So I need to walk into the room already feeling like you need to have this product, right? So I reached out to Scholastic, and I was like, you know, just wanted to let you know what Little Heroes of Color has been up to these last 2 years. And would you believe it? She says, you know, wow, you know, this is fantastic work. And we'd love to talk to you about, you know, possibly creating a book. Now, we never mentioned, even till this day, the fact that the same manuscript I sent to her in 2018 was the exact same one I sent to her in 2016. But whatever, we don't need to discuss that. Things started really, really working in my favor. So I had to drop out of school just to keep going. And then remember the Black Public Media event? They did it again, September 2018. This time I was accepted into the program. And in January it started. It was like a 2-week intense training, kind of like Shark Tank. And that year, the beginning of that year, was when I first did my business freelance workshop at College of the Canyons. It was in person though. And it was a 3-part series. And it was just, man, it was an eye-opening experience for me. And things just started swinging in my favor, but it wasn't luck. It wasn't like, oh, wow, you know, all these great things are happening to you all of a sudden. It's been perseverance. It's been hard work. It's been me not giving up on myself, you know, and more than anything is really realizing my value and my worth, you know. So in April, the Black Public Media had their actual pitch night. Now, this is, if you could imagine, you're pitching in front of studio execs, HBO was there, PBS, like all the major networks are there. And there were 13 of us competing for this prize. And I'm so happy to say that I actually got up there and I won. And that money was towards the creation of more episodes of Heroes of Color. And then the end of that, 2019, my book that I lied and said I was working on, well, I actually put something together. And that is what the book ended up looking like. The month after January, I dropped another book. And I'm sharing all of this to basically share with you that my art journey has been one of like literally ups and downs and ups and downs and upsets and happy moments. But your career, your art career is really going to be determined on the, you know, how much you believe in yourself and in what you're doing, even when other people don't, because that's really the key. You have to continuously convince yourself first that the work you're doing is important, that the work you're doing is valuable. And once you're able to convince yourself that the work you're doing is great, then it becomes so much easier to convince other people that they need to hire you or that they need to work with you on a project. And so March 2020, I started doing a bunch of virtual workshops, which leads us to where we are today. I've done, you know, over 24 workshops since COVID hit. When COVID hit, I lost about $15,000 to $20,000 just from cancellations. And it was tough. You know, a lot of people had to bounce back from that. And that's when I started feeling the whole thing about not being essential. And, you know, the number one question to me was, well, you know, during this time, what is everybody doing? What were we all doing during this quarantine? We were watching Netflix, we were watching YouTube, we were listening to music, we were, you know, playing games on the iPads, like all this creative stuff that was invented by us, by creative people. So the nerve of the media and society to say that we're not essential. Are you kidding me? What would they have done without the stuff that we created? You know, so that was when I really started to think about, you know, oh my goodness, we're so valuable that we're allowing this world to turn, because people would just be banging their heads up against the wall if they didn't have any of this creative stuff that, you know, we continue to, in this content that we're putting out, you know. So don't think for a second that you're not important, that you're not valued, or that your work is not needed, you know. And the thing about it is, sometimes, okay, let's just be honest, people may not be knocking down our doors, banging on our doors to say, hey, I need to get this illustration from you, or I really need to get this design, or whatever. But, you know, most of the opportunities that come our way come because we actually create them for ourselves. We create them by, you know, who we network with, the chat rooms we affiliate ourselves with, the people we affiliate ourselves with. And it's just important to remember that, you know, you don't get gigs by just sitting at home doing nothing. I mean, unless you're good like that. But for most of us, you're actually out there hustling, trying to create these opportunities. So one of the things that I would like everybody in this room to do is to give themselves a very honest self-assessment. You know, think about, what is your purpose as an artist? If you're just getting into CalArts and you're still trying to figure that out, then I'll reroute that question to you and ask you, what is it that you're passionate about? Because remember, in my timeline, I didn't know what my purpose or my why really was until 2015. That was 5 years ago. You know, I'm 43 years old, and I just figured out what it is that I'm called to do. You know, and a lot of times these callings come to us when we're affected by it in a negative way. Then all of a sudden we're advocates for it. Not to say that I wasn't before, that I didn't care about these issues before, but once it creeps into your house, then it's a totally different situation. So as an artist, just ask yourself that question. Why do you create the work that you create? Does it inspire people? Is it designed to do that? Is it designed to educate people? There are no right and wrong answers. These are just questions that I want you to think about, you know, because we're talking about what's essential. We're talking about what's needed. You know, education is needed, entertainment is needed, you know, but I'm trying to get you to hone in on what your specific niche and your strengths are. One of the best ways to do that is to think about, what problems do your designs solve for people? If you can figure out the solution to a problem that a company is having, that your designs will solve for them, you'll always find work. You'll always be able to find work. You know, and a lot of that comes into just doing the research and finding out, all right, you know what? I'm going to call this school or this organization based on what I read on their resume. They're all about, you know, positive representation. Maybe the work that you create is all about that. So you come up to them and you give them a pitch, you know, and you're basically you're giving them what they're passionate about. You're talking their language, you know. So once you're able to solve that problem for them, you'll know specifically, like, okay, now I know what people are looking for and who I need to reach out to you know, make these things happen. Another thing to think about is, has COVID changed the way that you do business, or just you in general? You know, it changed, it literally transformed me. I am a totally different person now, for the better, because although I was backed up into a closet and, you know, my back was against the wall and, you know, all of this money was literally just gone, I was able to figure out, okay, you know, I'm going to pivot now and I'm going to figure out something else that's going to enable me to make money, and use the climate in the country that we're living in right now as the tool to help propel these projects that I want to put out there. You know, so you have to think about what that is for you. What are some of the things that COVID has forced you to change? You know, are you embracing it? Is it something that's really difficult for you to embrace? Or are you just like, whatever, you know, whatever happens, happens? Again, no right or wrong, but these are just things to help think about what your strengths are, and what are the things that motivate you. You know, one of the things that motivates me as a freelancer is the notion that if, let's say, Bailey hires me to design character designs, to me, what excites me is the thought that, yeah, Bailey hired me to do the character designs, but she might also need somebody who does explainer videos, and she may need somebody to do editing, and she may need somebody to do some storyboarding. And it just turns out that I do all of that stuff. So now I've become this huge asset to Bailey, because now I'm a one-stop shop, you know. And that's one of the things that helps you with your career, is really knowing what your, you know, what your strengths are, but also knowing what is your niche. Like, what is that thing that you love to do? Could be anime, could be, you know, you love drawing fashion. You're all about drawing women in a positive way that's not derogatory, that's not showing flesh, uplifting images. I mean, whatever your niche is, think about it, because that's where your riches will lie. Trust me when I tell you this. COVID forced me to understand that I was literally sitting on a gold mine. Okay. 2 weeks ago, I did a diversity and inclusion training for the Walt Disney Company. I have never, first of all, I've never even attended a diversity and inclusion training. So I don't even know what happens in these things. But, somebody reached out to me based on my lived experiences. And she saw, a news report or something, where I came out with my daughter talking about this situation that happened in school and how I use my book as a tool to try to educate kids and teachers. So she saw that and she was like, oh man, this would be great, because we're having these issues right now at her department. So she called me up. She's like, hey, would you be interested in doing this thing? Again, what happened when the lady from Red approached me and asked me if I had a children's book? You got to be able to recognize these opportunities when they come, because when they come, they're sweet. They are sweet. It's like they're handing it to you in a platter, And when she started talking that language, I was like, oh, here we go. I've never done a diversity training, but I'm about to become an expert right now. And, it wasn't that I was being fake. It wasn't that I was talking about something that I didn't know. This is my lived experience. I lived the life of knowing what it's like to walk into a room or walk into a store or turn on the TV and not see myself represented. Many of us in this room may have shared a similar experience to it. So even if you're not a diversity and inclusion expert or have a PhD or wrote a book on it or wrote an article on it, you have lived experience. That's that cultural capital that nobody can take that away from you. So I did this workshop and I was like, this was amazing, and it helped me realize that I have some strengths that I have never tapped into, so don't just think of yourself as a designer. Think of yourself as a brand, you're not an individual anymore. Now you're a company. Look at yourself like you're a company. What does your company stand for? What are your company's core values? That's your mission statement. These are the things that are important to you. And what that does is it enables you to get freelance gigs based on that niche. I'm not going to go take freelance jobs if it's like animated porn or, something totally different from what I feel is important to me. You know what I mean? So instead of typically as a freelancer, we'll take whatever we can get. We'll take anything because it's going to give us some money and we need the money, right? The whole starving artist thing. But you have to kill that mentality of being a starving artist. Start looking for these opportunities and start creating them because they're definitely out there. But it really does start with you assessing yourself and your strengths and your values and what's important to you. Practicing your craft goes without saying. Whatever skill sets you have, if you're not practicing it often enough, then little by little you start to lose it. And we don't ever want to be put in a situation like that where we're not we're not staying up to date with our skill sets, and then you end up becoming out of date. Being able to really identify what your talents are and what your gifts are. I'm a talented illustrator, but I'm very gifted speaking and inspiring people. Two very different things. And one of them I learned, and the other one was just through experience. So you have similar talents and gifts. Everybody in this room does. The trick is to know if we've been able to identify what those are yet. Defining your target market. Once you figured out what it is that you love to draw or create or photography, who do you think needs it? Who's going to be the one that's going to pay you for that service that you create? And, I know they say often, jack of all trades, master of none, and in school, especially as an animation student, we're taught to pick a specific, skill and just go with it. You want to do storyboards, then go with it all the way. Don't think that you're going to get in the game and be a storyboard artist and an animator and a background designer and a character designer. It's not saying it's impossible, but it's rare. And they encourage you to just pick one and go with it. Well, as a freelancer, that's a bad move. you're going to shoot yourself in the foot, because again, like I was saying with my example earlier, if a client wants to hire me and they're now made aware of these multiple skill sets that I have, I've made myself indispensable to them, because now they don't need to go digging online to find somebody to do this, somebody to do that. You know what I'm saying? They know that I can do all of that stuff. And again, just going back to what I said earlier about finding solutions to your clients' problems, that's going to make you, you know, they're always going to, you're going to be their go-to person, because you understand their needs and you're able to solve it creatively. So they're going to continue to come back to you. And it takes some research. You know, it takes some learning, you digging into their website and learning about their programs that they offer, other projects that they've done, you know, so that when you do present your proposal to them, you've crossed all your T's and dotted all your I's, because you know exactly what they're looking for. And then the upsell, you know, Bailey asked me for a character design. Maybe she doesn't mention anything else, but maybe I'll ask her, hey, have you thought about creating some merchandise with this character design? Well, you know, it's something we thought about. And then I can add on, okay, well then look, I can create this product for you on merchandise. I can even do an explainer video with this character. I can handle the voiceover work. I'll do a complete marketing strategy for you. And now she's super excited because she wasn't even thinking about this. But again, once you know what your talents are, then you can start sort of announcing it to people and letting them, your clients, letting them know, hey, I do these other things as well. I put this video together a couple years ago, which talks about some of the important tips on freelancing. So I'd love to share this with you. It's about 2 minutes long, if that's okay. Let me just unplug my headphones because you won't be able to hear it.
If you've ever considered making a living as a freelance designer, here are a few quick tips that you should consider before you run off and quit your day job. Identifying your target market is crucial to your success. If you don't know who you're targeting or what their needs are, you can't expect anyone to bite. Once you've identified your client's needs, you can create products specifically designed to grab their attention. An online is a must. While a traditional portfolio is great for presenting work to local clients, an online portfolio will open you up to a global market. Let's face it, there is a lot of competition out there, but diversifying your creative services might give you the knockout punch you need to beat your competitors. Here are 8 essential qualities you need to be a successful freelancer. Business savvy, self-disciplined, confident, passionate, persistent, resourceful, versatile, and have great communication. No one wants to be a starving artist. Working with clients who substitute payment for empty promises like great exposure is part of an ongoing epidemic that is plaguing the art community. Freelancing does not mean working for free. Creating an artist agreement between you and your client is good business practice. And you don't need to hire an expensive lawyer to draft one up. There are dozens of free templates available online that you can download and customize to fit the needs of your project. Freelance jobs become scarce, and they will. Make sure you have enough money saved up to pay your bills for a couple of months. Estimating the time of completion on a project can be tough to do. Although freelancing can offer a flexible work schedule, you may find yourself feeling chained to your workstation if you don't estimate a correct deadline. Clients expect you to be available for work 24/7, regardless of time or day. So, good time management skills are key to setting realistic deadlines. For more tips on freelancing, log on to herediadesigns.com.
All right, so that was a video that I created in when I started my first company, Heredia Designs. And I created it because I saw this surge of these whiteboard videos that everybody, all these customers were using, these big corporations were using these whiteboard videos, and I knew I could do one. I never had a client actually ask me for one. So I created my own and put it out there. And then I started to get the opportunity. So it's like, again, you're creating these opportunities for yourself. There's a little exercise that I would like you guys to do. I've done this several times, and I found it's really useful in helping students and artists identify some of those key strengths that they may have. So, if you have a piece of paper in front of you, then that'd be fantastic. If you don't worry about it. Bailey, I'll give you I think I sent you the PDF. Maybe you can distribute it later on, and you can work on it on your own time. But one of the things that I would love for everybody to do is to just make a list of all of the design services that you offer right now. So if somebody were to walk up to you and ask you, hey, look, we're looking for a creative person for a major project, what kind of design services do you offer? Like, what can you offer me? So you need to make a list, like, okay, well, I do photography, I do graphic design, I do XYZ, whatever that looks like. But write those things out, have it out in front of you on paper, okay? The next thing I want to ask you is, in an ideal world, who would be your best client? Like, who's the ideal client for you, for the services that you offer? And make a list of who those clients are. Could be, the, pharmaceutical industry, could be Petco, could be athletes, could be college students, whatever. Just think about who you're marketing your services to and make a list of who those people are or who those companies are. And then the last thing is to think about, where can you find these people or these corporations or these companies? Because once you're able to answer these three the first one isn't a question, but, pinpoint these three things, then you're now on a path towards really honing in on your target audience and what your niche really is, because you might be talented in multiple ways. Bailey, in the workshop that we did the last time, I found out that one of the students in attendance was, I think she majored in animation, but she's also in a band and she plays the guitar really well. And she writes sheet music, and I was like, oh my God, she's got all these skill sets. But having multiple skill sets is an advantage. But when you want to think about, okay, who am I going to target it to? You have to try to hone it down, because you're not marketing to the whole world. You have to pick a specific group and start there. The whole world may love your designs, but that's not who you're broadcasting it to. You're going to pick a specific group. So do that, work on that. Even if you don't do that right now, if you haven't figured out all of these things right now, just to keep it in your mind, and then later on when you get this PDF, go back to it and write it out. And there's another exercise that we're going to do at the end of this. And the information that you wrote down here will help you on the next exercise. So this is a shot of the Pearson project when they called me to do this job. And I hired these people like literally within a week. These first two that you see, on the left side, the guy and the girl, they're actually CalArts graduates. But this was this was a job that I got for $1,000 off of Craigslist. Ended up being a huge project for me. I kind of went through the breakdown of how it happened. Oh no, maybe I didn't. Well, basically, long story short, they invited me to this meeting. I walked in, and the supervisor was like, look, this is our situation. We have 300 short animated videos that need to be completed within the year. Can you do it? Now, mind you, I was working from my home. I had 2 kids in the house. I had a laptop, which was slow. There was no way I was going to be able to handle this job. But if there's one thing that I think it was Richard Branson said was, get the job first and then figure out how to do it later. And this goes back to you building that confidence in yourself and knowing your value and knowing your worth, because this has saved me multiple times. Just the notion that I know if somebody presents me with a project that I maybe have never done before, but I'm able to think about how I can get this project completed. I'll have enough confidence to respond and say, yo, yeah, absolutely, I could do that project. And that's what happened here. You know, I'm sitting in a room full of all these execs in suits, and I was like, yeah, of course, I can do the job. It's not a problem at all. You know, and that just goes with you growing. You continue to grow when you challenge yourself, you know, and stay out of the, you know, just staying safe. You know, you can stay safe your whole life and, you know, maybe you'll have a successful career, and that's great. But if you want to have a great career, but you also want to be able to, you know, live your purpose and have value to the work that you're creating, you want to keep challenging yourself and finding new ways to make things interesting. So yeah, this was an incredible, you know, experience for me. And the whole point of this is to ask you the question of, when the opportunity does knock for you, will you be ready to jump? You know, and building your confidence is really going to help enable you to make that jump, no matter what direction it is. Knowing your worth, you've heard me say it several times. Now you've probably heard clients say to you, hey, we don't have a budget, or, you know, this job, if you do this job for us, it's going to give you some great exposure, right? Well, for me, when it comes to exposure, I like to tell the client, well, if I could pay my mortgage with great exposure, then I'll take this job. But until then, you need to come at me with some numbers, because that's just not going to work for me anymore, you know? Now, freebie versus pay me. Here's what I mean by that. There are people who obviously are going to try to get you for free or for as little as they can possibly get from you. Their only intention is to get something for nothing. And sometimes that's really obvious. Other times, they just have a really low budget and you have to try and work with them. But now this is what goes into knowing what your goals are, what your purpose is, what your objective is as an artist, as a brand. So for me, one of my goals is to develop a online sort of tutorial service, kind of like lynda.com. And, you know, to do these types of videos, pre-recorded videos, I have to actually have something to record. Like I need to have a topic. So I've been dabbling, you know, I've got a couple of ideas on some courses that I can create, but I've just never actually done it until recently. The city of Santa Clarita reached out to me and they said, hey, we're doing this thing in October. Every Saturday, we're featuring different artists from 7 p.m. to 9. Oh yeah, it's right there, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. And there will be 3 or 4 different artists who will get 20 minutes to just talk about their thing, you know, like whatever their niche is, we're going to give them the limelight to do this thing, like a little workshop. And I was like, oh man, this is exactly what I've been looking for. Like, this is what I want to do. So, you know, I'm not going to put them in a bad or throw them under the bus, but suffice it to say that the money they were offering was quite offensive. It was very, very low. And I was actually shocked that it was so low, but I did it. And I did it because it aligned perfectly with what my goals were. When Bailey reached out to me, or well, Tanya reached out to me and asked me if I could do this thing, it wasn't what I was really focusing on at the time. But again, it was teaching and workshops and educating. And that's something that I'm super passionate about. So I did it, and it helped catapult me to being here again today. You know, so a lot of times you may take on a gig that doesn't pay you very much, but you have to think about it in the long run. How much is it really worth to you? If it's going to align with a lot of the things that you want to do later on in life, or just like maybe a year or 2 years from now, it might be worth doing it, you know, because it's just going to be a learning experience for you. Again, this is going to be one of the exercises we'll do later. We'll talk about your goals, but, you know, another thing to think about is, by doing this one job, whatever it is, this gig, will it potentially create new opportunities for you? Well, I think this one has, because I did the video, I submitted it to them, and somebody from the city of Santa Clarita came back and was like, hey, man, dude, I just saw your video. That thing was amazing. Are you available for some more videos? I said, yes, I am, but not at that rate that you gave me, you know. And now I have more bargaining power now, because they saw the work that I put out the first time, you know, so now the ball is in my court. And so that's what you do. If it's something that's going to align with your goals, take it, do it, but just like do the absolute best that you can on it, so that when people see it, they're like, whoa, I was not expecting all of this. This is incredible, you know. And now you have a great portfolio piece, you have the experience of doing it, and you've made yourself somewhat indispensable to this client, because now they know that when you come, when they give you a job, you are not going to just deliver, you're going to over deliver, you know. And then when they say, hey, we want you to do some more, you stop them right there, say, stop. Yes, I'll do some more, but now it's on these terms, you know. And they're so excited, they want to work with you, so they'll find a way, even if it means meeting in the middle somewhere, but you find a way, you know. Building the relationship is really what it's all about. At the end of the day, it's about building that relationship and strengthening that relationship, you know. At the time that you're offered this, you know, very low paying job, just ask yourself these two questions. What is it that you really need most at that time, at that specific time? Do you need the money or do you need the experience? I cannot tell you, hey, don't take a low paying gig, they're trying to rip you off, if you need that money. I've been in situations where, you know, I finished a project for a client, but it was a net 30, meaning you're not going to get a check until 30 days from now. So I was like, oh man, I did about 3 or 4 jobs like that. So that means for this month, I'm screwed. Like, what am I supposed to do? So I jumped on Craigslist and I started finding some horrible, low paying $100, $200 gigs, but I was able to eat, you know? And so that's the difference between freebie versus pay me. You know, you got to think about what is your situation at that time. But if it aligns with your goals later on, then take it. I threw this slide in here because I felt it was really important to talk about, since we're speaking about ourselves as artists, as individuals, as a brand. When you come at this as now you are a company, what is your company's voice? What is it that you stand for? What are the things that you advocate for? And defining what that is. You know, this picture that you see is the cover of Vibe magazine. I was a couple years ago, they asked me if I was interested in designing some comic strips for Vibe magazine, which at the time had humongous circulation. So I was like, of course, you know, say no more, I'm all over this. And they sent me the script. And, you know, for anybody who knows me, I don't curse, that's just my preference. And, you know, I'm definitely not out there bashing or degrading women. And that's exactly what this script, this comic strip was about. And I was like, this is crazy that they would actually put this out there like that. So I thought about it for some time because, you know, the money was real good. And the question that I had asked in the previous slide, what do you need the most at that time? Money or the experience? Well, it just so happened when they reached out to me, I needed that money. But I knew that ethically it was not the right thing for me to do. Like I wouldn't be able to live with myself knowing that I did something like that. Even if I didn't sign my name on it, it didn't align with what my core values were as an artist, as a person. So I called him back and I said, look, I really appreciate the offer and I'm super excited about this, but I can't do it, man, because the language is crazy. You got all this cursing in here and it's just, I can't do that, you know? And he was like, well, you know, that's what the editor wants and they want it to be real edgy, so we can't budge on that. I'm like, wait, you know, thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it, but I'm not going to be a part of this project. And I hung up the phone. And I felt at the moment that I hung up, I was like, oh man, I should have taken it and just not signed it, you know, because I really needed that money. But I was proud of myself because I stood up for myself, for my beliefs. And what ended up happening was the guy actually called me back. He called me back like an hour later and said, look, I spoke to the editor and, you know, we really respect you for sticking up to your morals and your values. You know, and we're going to change the script completely. You know, we're going to take all the bad language out and all this. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. You know, in a society right now where it seems like if you're not cursing, if you're not out there being a certain way, you're looked as weird. If you don't drink, you're looked at as weird. Wow, you don't drink? Oh my God. Like, you should be honoring somebody or applauding somebody that says, oh, I don't drink, I don't smoke. I'm not saying I'm a saint, but I choose not to do those things. And I also choose not to do work that's going to, damage that sort of, value that I have. So think about this. When you create work right now, what does that piece of work say about you? If I know absolutely nothing about you, and I go to a gallery and the whole wall is lined with your artwork, what will that teach me about you? Or do you care? And this is what I mean about starting to define what your voice is. And I'm not talking about your style, the medium that you choose. The content is what I'm talking about, is what I'm referring to. What is the content? What is the message behind the work that you're creating? Defining your hustle. Let's get into it. I don't know what your situation is. I know some of you may be students, some of you may be alumni. I don't know if you have a full-time job or not, but as far as freelancing is concerned, just the first question to ask yourself is, how much time do you want to commit to it? Do you want to just keep it as a little side thing, a little part-time business? And that's fine. That's great. Knowing what you want is going to help you out so much. It's going to prevent burnout. Because if you're not sure and you say, hey, I just want to do this full time, but you're not really, you don't have the time to do that, then you're going to burn out quick, real quick. So define that for yourself. Is this a part-time thing? Is it a side hustle thing? So here's the big one. This is the one that I really want you guys to take away from today's session is think about what some of your long-term goals are with not I'm talking about your college degree and graduating. I'm talking about your personal art, your personal craft. Where would you like to see that a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now? Where would you like to see it? Think about what that looks like. I did this exercise for myself 2 years ago. And I said, you know what? I want to be doing workshops. I want to teach at colleges and community centers. And I want to educate artists on the business side of art, because many times we'll graduate from an art school and not have any business sense at all. And then we're getting screwed. We're taking jobs for way too little money. We're not reading our contracts. And it becomes a horrible experience for us. Well, I've signed some really bad contracts in my time. And if I can help prevent that from happening to you, then that would make me extremely happy, because it's one of the most frustrating things in the world to sign a contract that you don't understand just because you need the money. And it turns out that you just sold a part of your soul for a project, or worse, your work gets lifted, somebody's ripping your work off and you didn't take the time to copyright any of your work. That's another discussion for another day. But I want you guys to really think about that and take some time and outline what your goals are. Even if you just do 1 year from now. 1 year from now, just think about, I would like to have published a book, or I would like to drop a line of t-shirts. Once you have that end, that goal at the end of the year that you're trying to achieve, now you start working backwards and you start asking yourself the questions about, well, what do I need to do to get my shirts, my designs on shirts? So you'll start researching that. Well, how much is that going to cost? You start researching that, and you start doing all of the little things that you need to figure out how to actually make that happen. And before you know it, you end up doing it. And it is the most gratifying feeling in the world to make a list of your goals and actually start achieving them. That's inspiring. That keeps you going. So these are just some little business tips that I would love to share with you. Learning how to price your work is very, very important for you, because it's going to be the difference between you working smarter and you working harder. Because when you know how to value price your work, then you're not trading money for time. It isn't an issue of, well, I charge $50 an hour. Somebody says, hey, how much you charge for this character design? You ask all the questions first before you come up with the quote. Before you even get to that point, what you're going to do is, if you know that character design is your strength and this is the thing that you love, you're going to get on the phone and you're going to start calling people other artists and asking them, hey, how much do you charge for this? How much do you charge for this service? You know, don't tell them you're an artist. You just ask them, hey, how much do you charge for these things? And start getting quotes, start getting some numbers, you know, so that when you give your quote, you have a general idea of where you should be. So learning how to price your work is very important. Budgeting for marketing and promotion is also equally important, because I just learned something amazing on Instagram, where, you know, if you have a business account on Facebook and a business account on Instagram, you can actually, you know how you tag people? Well, you can actually tag your products. And so the other day I made a post and I tagged, it was a picture of my book, one of my books, and I tagged it with the product, and people clicked on it. Oh man, I sold like 30 books from one post, you know, and I was like, wow, this was fantastic. This was the best, because I didn't have to spend any money on promotion, like advertising, but I figured out a really smart way to market it, you know, to make it work in my favor. Always give them options. So if a client asks you for a character design, give them 2 or 3 different samples that they can pick from, for a couple different reasons. Number one, it makes them feel like they have, you know, they have options. Who doesn't love having options? But the other thing is, if you end up doing an incredible job with, let's say, 2 of them, and they're having a really hard time choosing, then you can offer both of them for a little higher price. You know, so again, that's the upsell. You know, always think about how you can, you know, generate multiple sales from just one project. And then setting goals for your business, setting goals for yourself as a freelancer. What are some of the things you want to accomplish as a freelancer? And networking is humongous. You know, I can't tell you, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for networking, if I wouldn't have met Tanya. You know, I reached out to her. I saw she was very active in the community, and I wanted to build with her. I wanted to be around people that were doing what I wanted to do. And so I started learning so much from her and from other people, you know, that the networks just started to, the relationships started to get stronger and stronger, you know, so that when an opportunity came, boom, I was the first person she thought about. And that's the power of networking. Creating proposals and pitching often, that's going to be one of the workshops we're actually going to dive into in the coming weeks. But I'll just say this. The trajectory of my business changed when I started pitching and creating pitch decks and proposals. And I went from offering stuff to people, like consumers, to now offering it to businesses. And it was like a night and day difference. You know, we'll get into that later on. You know, and you might think like, nah, that's not for me, or I don't have any companies that want my stuff. Yes, trust me, they're out there and they're looking for you. So we'll get into that later on. Closing statements, because I definitely want to get some Q&A from the people in the room, is, you know, ultimately, like I said, you know, a lot of the opportunities that came my way because I put myself in those situations. You know, I would not have had many of the freelancing, the workshop that I taught at the community college in College of the Canyons. You know how I got that? So I wanted to pitch this idea of a freelance class to the community college, to the head of the animation department, Jeff Baker. And this man was so busy. I mean, I sent him emails. I mean, I stopped short from just showing up, you know, but that would have been a little creepy. But I was just like, man, I got to figure out a way to get this man's attention. Well, turns out he was also the instructor for the 3D class. So I was like, well, this is where that strategic networking comes in, you know. I signed up for his class. I was like, well, I'm in your class now. You're not going to reject me. So I signed up for his class. I graduated with a degree in traditional animation, not 3D. So I knew nothing about 3D. But here I was. And I made this tank, and it came out cool too. But my goal was, every single time class ended, was to walk up to him and just strike up a conversation. Nothing long, nothing dragged, deep or anything. Just, hey, how's it going? How you doing? How long you been teaching? Just trying to get as much intel as possible as I could possibly get from him until I found that common connection. And it came halfway into the semester when he told me that he used to freelance before he was a teacher. I said, really? Interesting you should say that, because I have this amazing freelancing workshop that I would love to do here. And that's how it started, and I created that opportunity, and you can create similar opportunities for yourself. Once you know what your products are, what your services are, once you know what your values are, what it is that is important to you, once you're confident talking about the work that you do, because it's not just putting up a portfolio and hoping somebody calls you for a job. No, you put up a portfolio, but you're talking about it. You're showing pictures of how it impacts people taking pictures, holding your artwork. Like you stay moving, you stay active, doing a whole bunch of stuff, because, I hate to use this expression, but sometimes people, and me included, we're like sheep. We see a mass of people doing something and we want to do it, or we want to figure out like, oh, what's going on? Like, what's the buzz? And then we'll join in. So if you're actively posting, here's my new project, here's my new photo shoot, here's my new this, I'm like, wow, this guy or girl is extremely like into their business. Like that's incredible. Then what happens is, without even thinking about it, I'm in a meeting or I'm somewhere else and I'm in need of a photographer. Who am I going to think about? The person that I'm always seeing online, the person who's always talking about different things that they've done with their work and their craft. So you're creating these opportunities for yourself. And similar to what happened with COVID, we either adapt to the situation or we are extinct. Think of how many businesses have closed down just here in Santa Clarita. The soccer, I forgot the name of it, but that big soccer center, they were in business for like 26 years. They had I think it was like 26,000 square foot, space. And those closures, man, it killed you. But, some people saw the writing on the wall and they took their soccer classes outside, and they were like, hey, we're still doing soccer classes, but we're just going to be outside now. So they were still able to get that money. They made they adapted rather to the situation. And that is what helps your success, to be able to adapt to whatever situation you're in. Staying relevant is, again, similar to adapting or going extinct. You work on, when I graduated from the School of Visual Arts, while I was attending, we were still shooting on camera and painting on cells. Nobody does that anymore. But halfway through my education, I was like, oh my God, what I'm learning is already obsolete. This is horrible. So we had to make the necessary adjustments. They started throwing in digital animation. They introduced, 3D animation. And so we had to pick a track. Which one do you want to go? So that was tough, but you have to stay relevant if you want to stay in the game. For anybody in this room who has the time and who has this freelancing thing a little bit more developed, then there is a free resource available to you at College of the Canyons. And they may have it there at CalArts as well, I don't know. But it's the SBDC, the Small Business Development Center. And I've been going since 2011. And they set you up with a business coach or a mentor. And you outline what your goals are. Hey, look, this is where I would like to be 3 years from now. And they start challenging you. They start giving you exercises, homework. This is what you got to do. And they work with you and they build with you. And it's free. So that's the best part about it. So look them up if you're interested. Small Business Development Center. And the other thing is, you want to continue to find new ways to engage with people. I don't have my book with me, but there's a page in this book where my business card is on it. And if you flash your phone over it, like the AR technology, it pops up and the trailer to one of my videos pops up on your phone. So it's like incredible way to entice people, with the stuff that you're creating. And so just keep doing that. Keep trying to find new ways to get people excited about old things. It's not about reinventing the wheel. It's just adding a new spin to it. That's really all it is. If you're interested in picking up a book, you can find it there, thefreelancehustle.co. But the other thing is this. I would love to continuously build with everybody that's in this room right now. Here's my contact information. I'm on Instagram mostly. There's my email, my website, my cell phone. Listen, don't be shy about reaching out to me, asking questions, or even if you are already established, but you just want someone to just bounce some ideas off of. Building a community is so incredibly important. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'll send you the PDF so that you can share it with everybody. But before I log this off, I would like everybody to just quickly take your phones out and just text me your email real quick. Just text me your email so that I can have it locked in. And then we can keep building that way. I mean, you can follow me on Instagram and I'll follow you right back. But, the analogy that I like to use is if Instagram and all social media goes down today, will we still be able to be in touch with each other? And so I want to have the ability to keep building and keep connecting with you. So yeah, that's my part one of this series. And I hope that you have found some value in it. And I want to welcome everybody in this room to ask me a question. So let's start engaging now.
I did want to throw out. Oh yeah, I was gonna throw out two people that had to leave early. Did private message me and say, "Oh great, we can't wait for the recording." So
okay, good.
So they'll follow up too. I know,
awesome.
Yeah, two of them. But anyway.
I have a question about what you said. Also, I'm not a design student. I just got an email. I'm actually in the Comp ESP program.
What is that?
It's music. I'm a music student.
Oh, okay.
But
right on.
It's all kind of intertwined. But I was thinking about what you were saying about like your work having integrity and like, I often think about that, like, we're a brand. And so doing something that doesn't fit your brand, or maybe like what your message is might actually result in you losing work that you want, or like maybe like be a distraction, or like, I don't know, possibly delay you from maybe opportunities that you are seeking. And I think like all of us, like a lot of us are in school and we're kind of still developing like our voices and like what's important to us, what we like, what we don't like. So maybe like we're in the experimentation phase, and like maybe we'll put out art that like, oh, I put this pretty vulgar thing because like that's just how I'm feeling right now. But then maybe like next month I'm gonna be like, oh my gosh, like now I'm seen as this thing, like how much room, because I mean obviously like we're expressing our experiences. Like, and I feel like sometimes it can be constricting when I'm thinking of myself as a brand, because I'm like, okay, well I don't like, I do want, I am all about like integrity and about like, not misrepresenting myself or like speaking for other people, or like, but also it's like I am always changing and evolving, and maybe like this month I'll do a song that's like very sexual or risque, but like maybe in January I'm gonna be like, don't look at my body ever. Like, what is that balance? Because I feel like both of those experiences and dialogues are like part of who I am, but it's like it's me like being like, okay, it's summertime, I want to do this type of song right now. Is that mean like in January it can't be like turtleneck, like don't look at me, look at the music?
Well,
like,
I'll say this. I shared that my purpose or my why really hit me in the year 2015. That was 5 years ago. That's 5 years ago. So when I was and I went to two different colleges. I graduated from a 2-year college first, and then I graduated from the 4-year college. And I was in my 20s. So, and here's another confession that I'm gonna make, since we're, being honest about everything. My thesis film in the School of Visual Arts, no, not my thesis film, but my 2nd-year film was a film called The Canary and the Crow, which was a spin-off of Batman and Robin. where Robin was this foul-mouthed little brat. It was very funny, but guess what? It was cursing. But you're not going to see it anywhere online. You know, if you were a student in that classroom, you saw it. But, you know, so now fast forward to the conversation I had with Vibe when I told him, hey, man, I'm not about doing work that degrades women and has bad language. But wait a minute. 20 years ago, you did this thing where these cartoon characters were cursing, right? Nobody's perfect. None of us are perfect. All we can do is evolve and change, and we learn every single day. If today you feel like you want to do a song about bikinis, do it. Make sure it's the best song you ever put out. Tomorrow you want to do a song about turtlenecks, do that. But be true to yourself. Make sure you're doing it because that's what you want to do, not because that's the trend and you think this is going to make you a star, you know, because then you're losing yourself. You don't have a voice. People do have a voice, and they do the very sensual, very sexy stuff, classy, and then maybe they'll do something that's trashy. That's just how they feel. But guess what? That's unique to them. That's who they are. And you're in an experimental phase right now. So explore everything. Just make sure that whatever you're exploring, it's what you want to do, not what you're expecting other people think that you should be doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's true. I guess sometimes I maybe think a little bit too black and white about that whole, like, you're a brand. So does that mean like I'm not like an evolving like person that's going to contradict myself? All humans do, you know. I guess sometimes
all it is, look at it like this. It's like you're a GPS. Your brand is your GPS. And what happens when you're driving and you get lost? You get off the road and you're like, oh snap, you know, how do I get back to that pathway that I'm trying to, my destination? Well, you take a couple of side roads and then eventually you get back on track again. So when I say you're a brand and what are your core values, what's your mission? What is it that's important to you? These are just things that are put in place to help guide you in that direction that ultimately you want to get in, or that you think you want to get in. Because yeah, today your mission might be to save the whales, but 2 weeks from now, your mission might be, hey, I really love turtlenecks. You know, maybe I'll do some eco-friendly turtleneck. Yeah, I mean, your mission is going to change because, as you said, you're evolving and you're changing as a person. I'm not the same person I was 6 months ago, you know, and I don't think that because you're changing and evolving, that's going to be looked upon negatively on you because you're changing and you know what I'm saying? Like, so don't worry about that. Don't worry about what you should be concerned with is what's important to you. What do you defend? Like, what can you defend? The body of work that you create, can you defend it without any hesitation? Then you're doing the right thing. I can't create some work of like anime characters because it's the big thing, but that's not my style. I don't really understand that culture, but I'm not gonna, you know, sit here and lie and say, yeah, oh, I'm all about that life, the anime life. That's not what I do. So I'm not being sincere to myself. And that's what I want you to take away from this is just be true to yourself. Don't worry about what people say, because guess what? No matter what you do, how do you pronounce your first name?
Emma.
Emma. No matter what you do in your career, whether it's fantastic or if it's awful, people are going to still talk about you regardless. So don't worry about what other people think about you. Worry about what you think about you, because that's all that matters at the end of the day.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's a good question, though. I mean, it's, you know, you may feel like, oh man, I'm contradicting myself because I said this, but then I'm doing this, you know, but you're a student and you're exploring and you're learning and you're also a young adult who's also
a Gemini, so it's kind of part of my
personality. Yeah.
Like, I don't think I'm like, even after our school, I don't think I'm like ever gonna like not be contradicting myself.
Also a Gemini. All right. Well, you know, you get a free pass then. Nah, but seriously, you know, just think about that. You know, as long as you're being true to yourself, then, you know, don't.
I think what made it click for me is like, I do feel confident that I'm able to defend all of my work.
Then you're good. You don't worry about it. Listen, I did the Heroes of Color thing, and the very first episode was on the Harlem Hellfighters, which was an all-black military unit that fought in World War I. It ended up on the PBS Film Festival, and it was like one of those things where people had to vote. And oh man, hundreds of people were like, oh, this is beautiful. I love it. This is great education, blah, blah, blah. But then there were those people that were starting to hit like below the belt. And I was like, that comment right there stung. Like that was crazy, you know? And I was thinking to myself, you know, like, what do I do? This was something that I created because I felt so strongly about this education piece. And I had to defend it because I believe so strongly in it. And it wasn't like defending it like I'm fighting with you, but it was more like, you know, people were saying or misconstruing what my message was, you know, and that's the only time that I felt like I needed to speak up, because people were saying, hey, this is horrible. This looks like crap. I didn't even bother with them. But when people made comments like, well, I don't really understand, you know, this project looks like it's dividing people, not uniting people. How is this a positive thing? Then I would respond, because that's a teaching moment. That's an opportunity for me to educate you on something that I would love for you to learn. And if you're willing to listen, then, oh yeah, absolutely. I'd love to explain it to you. But rarely are you offered that opportunity. Usually it's just, your work sucks, and then they're gone. You know, and then you live with that if you take it or release it. I release it. I don't hold that anymore. When people say, hey, your work is garbage, thank you. That's it. Just keep it moving, because I know what I'm doing is valuable and impactful. And that's all that matters to me. And my kids like it too. So that's an added bonus. Any other questions? Come on, you got to hit me with another good one. That was a good question. I like that. Natasha, you look like you have a question.
I have a question. Sorry, Natasha, unless I'm
no, it's all good.
spot. No, I'm just kidding. I have a question. So I like your self-assessment slide a lot. And I think when I've done creative things, that's a thing I've struggled with, is to find that self-assessment of, and for me, it's less about like, what does my work inspire or does it educate or what is it? And more about, how do I find the tone that's right for me, the vibe, the like, I mean, like how, you know, what kind of aesthetics am I pulling on? And that's only, that's so personal, right?
Oh,
like
yeah,
that, it
absolutely.
can only be designed by yourself. But I'm wondering if there are, not to put you on the spot, David, but other types of questions that we can ask ourselves creatively to get to the truest tone for ourselves, the truest vibe, the truest, like the metaphorical color of what,
of what that is.
Yeah, what that is. Like, how do you assess that for yourself or suss that out?
I think for me, and there's another assessment that we're going to do in the top 10 ways for freelancers to earn money. It kind of goes back to the question about what do you need at the moment that you're creating the work that you're creating? Is it because of money? Are you driven by the money? Or are you driven by this experience that you're really trying to gain? And if it's an experience that you're really trying to gain out of this, you know, definition of your craft, then you're going to put yourself in situations where you can live it and see it and experience it. So for me, for example, I felt like I really wanted to create work that was going to impact K through 4th grade and see how they respond to this type of multicultural stuff. Well, that's what I wanted to do, but I do very well speaking in front of adults, but in front of kids, I just fold and I'm like a robot, and I'm so uncomfortable, you know, presenting in a classroom for kindergarten kids. I don't know what it is yet. I haven't figured it out, but I had to do that though. I had to put myself in that situation to really understand what my voice was. Because sometimes, you know, and this may go back to Hema, what you were saying was, you know, you may switch, like maybe one day you want to do this, the next day you want to do that, and that's fine, you know. But for me, I was like, well, I know I want to do this thing for children, but how immersed am I in that world of children? You know, I have 3 kids, but that's not enough, you know. So I started going to schools, and I started just like, hey, I just want to sit in the back quietly and observe. every now and again, I'll offer to do like a little workshop thing or reading time or whatever, so that I can learn and see how kids are responding. And they respond to color, you know, and they respond to character designs and characters that are smiling and interesting hairstyles and, you know, like all these things that I'm like, oh, wow. So when I create my work, I have to pull off of these things, you know, so it's, a lot of it is lived experience. I think when you start
and looking to your audience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Learn from your audience instead of telling them what they want, ask them what they want and learn from them. And that's why it's so important to really try and hone in what your target audience really is. And I think that is tough. That's the toughest thing, because when I first did my video series, I was like, oh, this is perfect for junior high school. This is perfect for them. But then the ones who loved it the most were elementary school. So I was like, oh, snap. You know, I totally missed the point on that one, but I geared it now towards the younger group because they were the ones that were, you know, more receptive to it. So to answer your question, I don't think it's, you know, a self-assessment you can write down on a piece of paper and know the answer to right away. It's more a question of, you know, what is your trajectory and what are some of the experiences that will help you to find what that tone is. You know, for him, maybe she needs to go to some jazz clubs and listen to different musicians playing. You know, if she loves that type of music, maybe she needs to go to the Disney, you know, I don't know what that thing is called, the Hollywood Bowl, you know, and listen to some classical music so she can try and figure out like, what is her tone? What's her voice? You know, so you got to put yourself in these different experiences to really feel it, because art is about feeling, right? It's not just about what you see, it's how you feel after you see it.
And it's about, I think, testing these audiences, right?
Oh, yeah,
so like if
absolutely.
you are, as an artist, I think building up your, you know, it's like you should experiment with putting it in front of different eyes that you, I think, would not normally have. And you're going to like get so much information out of that, out of reaction, out of, and some you'll take with you and incorporate and some you don't, you know?
Wait, so Bailey, let me ask you, what are your, are you like a creative artist? Are you a musician? What's your...
Back before I had this full-time job. No, my background was in, I'm not making anything right now. I'm not currently working on stuff, but my background was in filmmaking.
Filmmaking. Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's what I studied. And I think, I don't think I landed, you know, more on finding my own, my brand extends into more of an educator space, I think, and everything than identifying distinctly as artist. But but certainly have had my fair share of putting my work out there, being on creative teams, trying to get people to buy or screen the things I've made. So,
well, you know, again, it goes back to something that I said earlier, where oftentimes your passion for filmmaking leads you to what your purpose is. And sometimes you don't know what it is until you find yourself, you know, at the Life and Work, you know, Development Center, trying to come up with some creative programs to help students, you know, to really guide them through, to really make sure that when they graduate, they're well-rounded individuals. So your passion for filmmaking got you there. And now your purpose is to really help drive these people and, you know, inspire them. So, I mean, I forget what the exact number is. I think it's something like 65% of people who graduate actually end up finding jobs outside of their major. But, you know, also, you know, the thing to consider though is, all right, maybe you're not in your major, but maybe that thing that you were so passionate about led you to where you are now. You know,
and I think we see through lines, right? Like you see through lines tonally and my own approach at, you know, I noticed, anyway, I don't want to talk about me right now.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm just the only one not on mute right now.
It's a conversation for another day.
But no, I fully am on board with the idea that tonally, you know, as I'm defining myself, and this is why we're called the Center for Life and Work. Like we as artists, as creative people, are going to have these dual careers. We're going to have multiple careers. We're going to, and career isn't even always the right word to describe it in some ways. I mean, sometimes we are working in ways to make money, and sometimes it's for our creative ends to make ends meet. And sometimes it's out of creation, and it doesn't matter where monetarily that falls sometimes. But I think, you know, finding through lines in you as a person is so important when you're establishing your brand.
Definitely. Definitely. Okay, somebody else has to ask a question. Come on. This is a great opportunity to get those questions in. Natasha, you say you wanted to ask a question?
Yes, I actually do have a question.
There you go.
Yeah, so with the idea of kind of placing yourself like in places to kind of test things out or to be networking and
Yeah.
kind of seeing yourself and yeah, connecting with these people that you kind of want to be like and want to do what they're doing. So what are kind of comparable ways to do that right now in when we can't really be in spaces and things
Yeah,
like that?
that is a good question, you know, and that actually has been something that I have had to think about myself because, you know, the majority of the people that well, I should just say that, not that I want to emulate, but that I, you know, admire the work that they're doing. They're doing a bunch of workshops, and I'm pretty sure most of us are sick of Zoom already. And, you know, you're in Zoom all day and then you take a break and then, oh, great, somebody's doing a workshop. So I got to get back on Zoom again. So sometimes it's tiring, but when you're thinking about something that you're passionate about, something that you love, or something that you're interested in, you'll do it. You're going to find a way to do it. So, you know, just staying online, looking at Facebook, a lot of times they have events, Facebook events. Eventbrite sometimes just posts things that are filtered by the category that you like. I have mine set to art events, cultural events. So anytime something happens related to those keywords, it pops up on my calendar. And I'm like, oh, this will be cool to, you know, sit in on this thing. And sometimes it ends up being the greatest thing. Sometimes it ends up, you know, 10 minutes in, I'm like, I'm out of here, you know. But right now, really, that's all we have available to us is just look at what virtual events are going on. You know, I mean, outside of that, I would say if you have people in your network, just giving them a call, because there's nothing like just a personal, hey, jump on the phone and have that conversation, you know, but really putting yourself in places where they are. And right now, they're online, you know, so just immerse yourself in that. Here's another thing that I would say. If you're on like Facebook or Instagram, it's right now is the difference between just going on and liking something that somebody did versus actually making a comment on that person's post and then following up with the DM and ask personal question and start building that relationship. Right now is a great time to actually start building that relationship, because think about how many, I hate to use this word, followers you have, but think about how many of those people you actually know. You know, maybe you know all of your followers. I don't. You know, I probably know 10% of the people that are following me, and I'm cool with that. But at the end of the day, if you ask me how many of those people are you building with and actually have a connection with, that number is starting to go up, because I understood that, you know, a lot of these opportunities happen because this is the bottom line is this: people do business with people that they like, right? You can have the best products in the world, Natasha. I mean, your products are just, nobody can compete with them. But I know Bailey, and she's real cool and she's real sweet. So her products maybe are not as good as yours, but she's such a great person. I'm going to give her the job because she spent more time building with me online. I feel comfortable with her, and we do business with people that we trust first. So now is a great time to go on your social media and really start building with the people that you think strategically are going to help you with your, whatever your niche is, you know. And it's the big mistake that many of us make, and I've made it too, I raise my hand to that, is we'll find somebody that we're like, oh, this person is like exactly what I want to be when I grow up. Like, this is the thing I want to do. And we make the mistake of reaching out to them and asking them for a favor or asking them for something, you know, versus reaching out and saying, hey, I love what you're doing. Keep up the great work. This is just, I am so thrilled to land on your page. And then when they post stuff, don't just like it, hit a like, and then say, wow, this one came out better than your last piece. Or I really love to know, like, what inspired you to do this? And you start building, you start asking these questions, and that person's gonna be like, man, Natasha's like really engaged in what I'm doing. Like, that's really cool. I like that. You know, and that makes it so much easier now for you to do business with that person, or to learn and get tips from that person, because now they feel not that they owe you, but they appreciate you because you've taken so much of an interest in them that they want to help you now, you know? So hopefully
I
that
just want to
helps.
be cognizant of your time too, David.
Oh, yeah,
I know
no,
we're
I'm
just
good.
past 7:30, but
Yeah, okay.
I just want to be aware of everyone's time. But I
Yes,
just
okay.
wanted to say too, I did put the PowerPoint, like the
Oh,
PDF
perfect.
of it in the
Okay.
chat. So if anyone wants to download that, or if you miss it right now, you want to reach out to the Center for Life and Work, I can email it to you.
Perfect.
And then we have recorded it. So if you all have any friends, any colleagues, peers, even if they're outside of, well, within the CalArts community. Oh, like no, wait,
even if they're
no, for CalArts
outside.
community. No, please let me know, because we do have the recording of this session, and we would love to bring in even more people for the second part next week,
Yes,
which is coming up next Wednesday, same time. We'll be sending out Zoom and wait, it is Wednesday. Yes, Wednesday,
Yes,
the
Wednesday.
14th of October. 6 p.m. We'll be sending out the Zoom link information for that one through the Career Corner and then through Compass and everything throughout the next week for you to come to that. And it just builds on what David's already laid out here today.
Yes, it's a fun workshop. You know, it's definitely one. I'm not going to say that, you know, if there's anyone that you don't want to miss, because they're all equally important, but the three very powerful ones are the networking, the, you know, pitching, and the one that we're doing next week, which are just creative ways to start earning money. Because at the end of the day, yes, I mean, it's great to inspire people and make people happy, but shoot, we want to make money too. So, you know, that's just an added bonus. So yeah, I'm really excited about next week. And if there are no other questions, then I guess, you know, we'll close out today. But again, I just want to thank you, Bailey and Natasha, for giving me the opportunity to share some of my experiences. And for the rest of you that are still here, you know, I truly do hope that you found some value in it. And again, just want to emphasize, I'm easily accessible online, so do not hesitate to reach out to me at any time.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, David. And thank
welcome.
you all. It's so nice to see you all, and looking forward to seeing you all at part 2 next week.
Yes, yes.
Great. All right, I'm going to stop recording.